Okay. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Good evening to everyone. This week is a very, very packed week. This week's a very significant week. I believe that this week is actually going to be the last week of Nun Beis year, at least part of the formal Nun Beis Mesivta. Maybe there'll be another part for something small for Vayakel. Maybe there'll be something for Nun Aleph afterwards. But for the Nun Beis part of the Mivtza, so it's unfortunate, but it's also good news because Be'ez Hashem, that should mean that it's the last year that we're having in Golos and should be the beginning of the Nufa bringing that we have from the Rebbe. From the Rebbe. We're not looking to stay in Golos and hold on to these siches. We're looking for the actual Golos to happen. And learn new one, exactly. The significance of the Sikha of this week is that it's the last full parsha that we have. It's the last parsha that we have a full Mugadik Sikha from the Rebbe, which of course means for every chassid, this Sikha has a special room located in the heart of every chassid. So the last Sikha that Rebbe, last full Mugadik Sikha that Rebbe gave us, this is obviously, it's not a joke. I'm sure everybody knows, and even if you don't know, I'm sure you understand on your own, that the Rebbe knows exactly what's going on and what's gonna happen. When the Rebbe said, and when the Rebbe was Magiyah the Sikha, the Rebbe knew that this is what he's leaving us off with, Le'isata. And it's very, there's a famous expression from the Frierdiker Rebbe, that Halevai, I wish that Anashim the Tmimim would be medakdik. I wish they would look carefully and precisely in the Sichos and the Maimarim of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and especially at the last year. Why? Because the Rebbe always referred to, the Rebbe at Bavaro, and the Frierdiker Rebbe already explained everything that has to get done. It's a matter of looking at his Torah, and especially the last year. So if that's true regarding the last year in general, how much more so is it true, Mamash, regarding the last Sikha? So, we're going to go through the Sikha. Now, it's a long Sikha. Long not just because it has a lot of paragraphs, but long because a lot of nekudos, a lot of heavy-duty nekudos. So I don't know how much time is it. I was explaining a little bit late. I don't know how much time is going to allow us to really cover from the Sikha itself, but I'm going to focus like every week on the main flow, the main nekudos, and then, and of course, most importantly, I want to download what this Sikha actually means for us now in our generation. And we're starting. Parshas Ki is a very unique parsha. It speaks about many opposite things. For example, it starts off with talking about the first luchos, representing the fact that the Yidden were in a very high spiritual state, right? We see the luchos. It continues to talk about the breaking of the luchos. Chet Egel, representing which is describing a level of Yidden, the way they're shach to Chet Egel, the way they're shach for the luchos to be broken. And then we move on to the third set of luchos. I'm sorry, the third step, which is the second pair of luchos. And then Moshe Rabbeinu gets a mask over his face because his face is beaming. So the parasha is built out of this zigzag of up and down and up, and then it's very, very interesting. And in fact, it seems like it starts high, goes low, and then it goes even higher than before. Like for example, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu's face was glowing specifically after receiving the second luchos and not after receiving the first luchos indicates, at least somewhat, as we'll see, the second luchos were actually greater than the first. So it's a little bit confusing. What's the message of the parsha? Is the message of the parsha that the Yidden are doing good, or is the message of the parsha that the Yidden are not doing so good? What's going on over here? To add to this challenge is the name of the parsha. The name of the parsha is Kisisa. Most people, when you ask them, so what's Parshas Kisisa about? They're going to say, oh yeah, Chet Egel. You ask them what Parshas Israel about, what are they going to say? Matan Torah, right? The luchos. You ask them about Kisisa, what are they going to say? Chet Egel l'chayra. But what's the name of the parsha Kisisa? Kisisa is Rosh. When you bring up, right, literally it's referring to counting, but the word Kisisa means when you uplift the head of the Yidden. In other words, we're talking about the Yidden being uplifted at a very high level. And yet, what's the main theme of the parasha? So it's very confusing. What's going on over here? The name, the teichen, it's so much mixed messages of, are we trying to describe the Yidden in a higher state or in an even higher state than that? The Rebbe has one more question. The Rebbe has a few more questions, but one more question which we're going to mention, which is, why bechlal are we focusing on the first luchos in this parasha? First luchos should have belonged in parashas Yisrei Mishpatim, not over here. Over here, if you bechlal mention the first luchos, it'll be the derech agav. That, by the way, first luchos came, they broke it, the ego, and the main thing is the second luchos. In other words, the real location in Torah, where the first luchos are given, and therefore where they should be complemented and described, is in Parashas Mishpatim, not here. The Rebbe starts off the explanation with a very fascinating view that really every part of Torah includes all the other parts of Torah, but in some parashas it's actually more boilet, it's more emphasized, it's more noticeable than other parashas. No, so what take? How do you see in Parashas Kisisa? The Parashas Kisisa includes in it all the other parashas. So here the Rebbe goes into a very, very beautiful explanation. And the Rebbe starts off, how many Bachram learned already the Sikha from inside? Wow, we got a nice amount this week. Very better than last week. Very good. Very impressed. Very good. And so, the Rebbe is gonna, for those who learned the Sikha already, may appreciate this Kiddush a little bit more. But the Nekuda is the Rebbe in Eis Dalet is gonna first lay out a certain structure, which when you learn the Sikha, it seems like that's the structure of the whole Sikha. But the truth is that in Eis Zayin, the Rebbe is going to take this structure and go much deeper into it. So stay tuned for the two layers. So the Rebbe starts off by saying that really, the Eibusha created the world with a system that everything that exists has three steps to it. Reish, Teich, and Seif. Reish is the head. Everything has three parts to it. The head. The head represents the idea, the way it exists as an idea. Meaning where I'm sitting and I have a clear vision, a clear goal of what I want that should happen. The second step is the actual process. I get up, I go, I do, I build, I buy, I do whatever I gotta do. And the third step, of course, is the final product. Right? And Seif Ma'aseh Machshavat Chila, the final product, is what I actually had in mind in the beginning. It's just that I have to go through a whole process in order to get there. Right? So just to give for a moment like a very silly example, I want to get a certain sefer from the shelf. Okay, so I want to have the sefer, I want to have a Rambam open in front of me. Oh, that's step one. I get up, I go to the shelf, I bring a Rambam, I sit down, I open it up. Oh, that whole process of getting up, going to the shelf, finding, sitting, that's step two. Step three is me sitting with the Rambam open in front of me. I achieved my goal. Right? A person wants to build a house. He's imagining what the house is going to look like. That's step one. He gets up, he goes to Home Depot, he buys wood, he buys nails, he buys this, he starts hacking and making. It's a very, very long process, a lot of details and a lot of professional people involved. It could take many years sometimes. But guess what? That's all part of step two, which is the actualization of the implementing of the idea. Step three, of course, is with the final product. The house is finally built, and now I could finally walk into the house that I always had in mind to have. Ad Kan is a brief introduction of the three steps. The Rebbe himself is going to give now many examples. I believe altogether it's 10 examples. I won't go through everything, I'll just go through the main ones. The first and most noticeable example is Torah. Torah came before the world. In other words, the whole world was Bereishis, Beis. The whole world was created for Torah, for Yidden and for Torah. The second step is the actual world being created. Hashem created the world. Hashem does Torah. And now that there's Torah, there's going to be a world. So the Torah could be actualized, could be fulfilled in the world. That's step two. Step three is that the world exists, the Torah is revealed in the world. In other words, the Geula. A second example the Rebbe gives is from the letters Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. Aleph, Beis, and Gimel stands for Anoichi, as in the Eibishter, he came first. Beis stands for Bereishis, Bara Elokim, Hashem created the world. And Gimel, of course, stands for the Geula. So Anoichi, Bereshis, and Geula. So you see, first was Hashem. He wanted to have the Geula. So what did he do? He went in step 2, which is to create the world in order to have the Geula, which eventually, through all Dvar Malchus Ki is going to lead to the final step, which is Gimel, which is the Geula. To take this even further, says the Rebbe. In other words, there is Hashem, there's step 1, which is Hashem, the way He wants to create the world. Then there's step 2, Hashem, the way He actually creates the world. And then step 3, which is Hashem creating the world, but the world the way it's in the state of Geula. In other words, already from the beginning when Hashem wanted to create the world, what type of world did He want? He wanted a world that's already a Dir B'Tachtonim. He wanted the world that has Geula in it. But in order to get the Dir B'Tachtonim, the Tachtonim and us has to have a whole process of working in order to bring the Geula. So right now, all of us working in Galus for the past few thousand years is all part of step 2, which is a build-up, a way of getting to the Geula Amitis Vashlema. That being said, when the Geula comes, that's obviously going to be entering step number 3, which is the completion of the vision that Hashem had to begin with before even creating the world. To say the same thing in the words of Chassidus, says the Rebbe, there is Atzmos L'Malot, the way it is before the world was created. There's the Siluk, the Tzimtzum, the way Hashem removes, in other words, conceals on a part of Himself. And then there is the re-revelation of Atzmos L'Malot, of Hashem, the way He is Chazar V'Heir, as it's called in Chassidus, the way it re-shines, re-lights, re-reveals itself in the world. The Rebbe gives some more examples, which I'm not going to go through now, but the next example the Rebbe gives is the way you see it in Torah, following that the example the way you see it in Turkey Avos, but I'm not going through it now. Says the Rebbe, now that we understand that everything divides into these 3 steps, we could go back into the parsha, we could understand that in our parsha there's also 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? Remember, guys, this is still within the first layer. Okay? In a moment we're gonna go much deeper, but this is all within the first layer. Now we understand what the 3 steps in our parsha is. What are the 3 steps in our parsha? Well, the first step is the first luchos. The first luchos are michtav elokim hema. The first luchos are handwritten by Hashem. The first luchos are given by Hashem in such a way that there's a tremendous gilu of elokus coming along with it. In fact, in the beginning, the Yidden would have been so smart and Torah would have been so clear and so halik to the point, meaning so halik in a revealed way, to the point that we would only need Chamisha Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yeshua. We wouldn't even need anything else because Torah would be so self-explained. We wouldn't need any Mishnayos and Gemaras to interpret and to remember. Torah itself would have been at such a high level. Torah, in other words, would bring us to a high level. Step 2, says the Rebbe, is Chet Egel. Chet Egel is the process of when the Yidden needed to own Torah. In other words, Torah was given to them, that's nice, but the goal is that the Yidden should actually own the Torah. No, how could you get the Yidden to a point where you own the Torah? The answer is, the Yidden have to go through this process of Chet, in other words, of something going wrong, and then they're going to do tshuva, which means they're going to work hard to re-get the Torah, and then they're going to go into the 3rd step, which is Torah, the way they earned it. What do you call in this week's parasha Torah the way they earned it? Help me out. Huh? Very good. The second luchos. What do you call the Torah the way the Yidden re-earned it? In this parasha, the answer is the second luchos. Right? The Yidden earned it through Torah, through tshuva, through doing tshuva chet ego. Just to clarify a little bit, this first layer, and then we'll jump into the real juice of the sikha, which is the following depth. We'll see in a moment. So the first luchos have a big maila, right? What's the maila of the first luchos? It's Hashem in a very revealed way, right? Hashem Himself handwriting the luchos, and it was made out of Hashem's money, quote unquote. It was everything about it was so miraculous. But that wasn't the goal. In other words, it was a very high level, but that wasn't the purpose. The purpose wasn't for Hashem to reveal Himself in that kind of way. The purpose was that the Yidden should work and earn and connect to Torah in a very real way. For that to happen, there had to be there was a process. What was the process? The process was Chet Egel. The Yidden went, they fell, they did tshuva, and that's how they re-earned that, not just to get a high level of Torah, but Torah the way it actually comes down to their level through them doing tshuva. And this seemingly explains to us the flow. Our question in the beginning was, there's so many mixed messages, high, low, high. Comes the answer, relax. It's a process. The first step is a high level. In order to get to the third level, you have to go through a process of the second level. So it's a process. No, you have to go through what you have to go through in order to get to the second luchos. Adkan is the basic explanation. Here the Rebbe starts going to the next level. But this is really the fire of the Sikh. One second. What caused the second step to happen? What's our word now? Second step is a part of the process, right? But what caused the second step to happen? The fact that the Yidden did a chait. In other words, the fact that the Yidden did an Aveda. Right? How is that a good thing? We're saying it's part of the process to get to the second luchos as if like step 2 is a good thing. But step 2 is not a good thing seemingly. A Yid came and made Chet Egel. I mean, you come over to somebody and you tell him you should know the Chet Egel was really a good thing. It was part of the process. Like, a Chet is not a good thing. A Yid has Bchira, and if he makes the wrong choice, it's a problem. What do you mean it's part of the process? It's a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. Yeah. If you go to any normal person, and you ask him, do you think Chet Egel should have happened? What would he most likely answer? No. It's the wrong thing. Why should it happen? Comes the Gemara and tells us, you should know, really, Hashem planned for Chet Egel to happen. Hashem really somewhere wanted Chet Egel to happen. Meaning, Hashem was the one who orchestrated this situation. It wasn't Hashem had in mind to get the first luchos. The Yidden came with a hammer and smashed this beautiful picture and did Chet Egel. Hashem had to think fast. Okay, how do we take care of this from here and on? You know what? Second luchos. Okay, picture number 2. Put it onto the stage. No. Hashem to begin with had in mind, He wants second luchos. But Hashem knew the second luchos will never happen unless the Yidden fail. So Hashem had to create a situation where the Yidden are going to fail. Why? So they should be able to do tshuva. So through their tshuva, they should be able to earn the second luchos. Meaning that Hashem is the one that's behind the second step. And now that's crazy. There's a pasuk that says, I have to understand what I'm saying here very well. Don't walk out with the wrong ideas, eh? It says in the pasuk, Neira alila al bnei Adam, that Hashem puts a person into a situation which that situation is going to cause the person to be chayte, to sin. In other words, Hashem, whenever a Yid is ever chayte, a Yid himself would never do an Aveda. No, so why do you do Avedas? The answer is because Hashem is the one that puts them in situations like that. Why? Because Hashem wants their Aveda. What's their Aveda? Well, ideally, the Aveda is that even though a Yid is compelled to do an Aveda, which again, Hashem is the one who compelled him to do the Aveda, because Hashem has a geshmak, seeing a Yid working hard to serve him. So the ideal Aveda is that a Yid has a taiva to do an Aveda, which Hashem is the one who created that taiva in his heart, right? And the Yid is going to have his skafia, and he's not going to give into the taiva, and he's going to break out of it. That's the ideal. If Chas v'Sholom the Yid failed, well, it was still Hashem which made him go into this Aveda. Having in mind that if the Yid, worst comes to worst, if the Yid fails, the failing is going to wake the Yid up to tshuva in such a way that he's going to do a lot more Avedas Hashem than before. Yeah, doing everything right. If Chas v'Sholom ever happens that he fails in certain things, if the Bachar, let's say, always gets 100 gets 90s on his mark. The Bachar always gets 90s. One test, he was spacing out, he wasn't so involved, he fails, he gets a 40. That 40 gives him such a boost that next test he's going to learn so much harder than what he learned for when he got a 90. Meaning The fact that he failed boosted him up to go so much higher. In other words, Hashem creates, this is unbelievable. Hashem creates situations for Yidden, which when you look at them on the surface, they look like a very low situation. You have a Yid, a neshama comes down to a guf, and suddenly the neshama has a taiva. Okay, not the neshama itself, but the guf, the neshama inside, has a taiva. No, I ask you, does that look bad? You have a geshmak pure neshama coming down to the guf. Suddenly the guf has a taiva for an aveda. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Seemingly, it looks like a very bad thing. What do you mean? The neshama, the pure neshama comes down to the physical guf. It's not good. But comes the Rebbe and tells us, no, because the whole purpose is, in this case, for example, for the neshama to make a dir b'tachteinim, the whole purpose is to reveal Hashem in the guf. And the whole purpose is to reveal the Hashem in the Nefesh Bahamis. Therefore, because that's the purpose, therefore the fact that the Nefesh Bahamis is involved, and the Nefesh Bahamis is in the picture, and the Nefesh Bahamis has taivas, that's actually the only way to get to a dir b'tachteinim. To say it in very simple words, the Nefesh Bahamis is grub, it has taivas. Now I'll tell you a secret. If a bacher wants to be a chassidus bacher and only deal with his Nefesh Elokis, and not deal with his Nefesh Bahamis, he's missing the point. He's not making a dir b'tachteinim. You're making a dir b'elyonim, you're revealing your neshama, but to take the Nefesh Bahamis and to elevate it, that you didn't do. But what do you mean? Dealing with the Nefesh Bahamis is so grub. Comes the answer, Enach Enami. The Nefesh Bahamis is not the Nefesh Elokis, that's right, it's a behema. But guess what? That's the whole purpose. In other words, the fact that Chet Egel happened, that was Hashem's plan. Hashem wanted that the Yidden should have this taiva of being Chet Egel. Now, what did Hashem really have in mind? Hashem really had in mind that the Yidden should hold themselves back, not do Chet Egel, choose Hashem in a very deep way, not fail, and now Hashem could have this deep relationship with them that they overcame their struggle and they're so much more committed to Hashem. Instead, what happened? The Yidden failed. Fine, but it's still part of the plan. Hashem still has in mind that they should pick themselves up and reconnect them in a much deeper way, which would never have happened if they didn't have either the taiva or the failure. So suddenly, Chet Egel is not a mistake. Now, of course, the Aveda itself is a bad thing, should never happen. But the fact that the Yidden had this taiva to go and do Chet Egel is not a mistake in the plan. Hashem was the one who made them have a taiva to go to Chet Egel, with the expectation that they're going to overcome it. Now, this is a very, very, very powerful Eidol for us, for itself already. Just this is a very powerful Eidol. Sometimes the Yid Bacher thinks to himself, I am Achshav Zoreis, I'm not perfect, it's hard for me. And a person could think to himself, you know what? I'm going to ignore the parts of my life which are hard. I'm going to focus on the parts of my life which are easy. Now what's the truth? The truth is, Alo Chacham. Why do you think Hashem created hardships? Because Hashem wants me to work. Hashem wants me to reveal, because Dafka where there's a Helem, specifically where it's hard. It's not pshat that, Hashem made a mistake. Certain parts of myself are perfect, and that's where Hashem got it right. Certain parts of me are not perfect, that's where Hashem got it wrong. And I have to focus on the parts of myself which are perfect. So, if I have very bad midas, I'm a very nasty person, but I'm good with focusing and learning Torah, I'm just going to focus my whole life on learning Torah, and I'm never going to work on my midas. Comes the answer, Chacham, who do you think created your midas with a blemish? Hashem. And why did he create it with a blemish? Because he knew that if you're going to work and master and elevate your midas, guess what? You're going to end up being the kindest person in the world. Because you know and understand the complexity of midas. Because you have to work on it. In other words, Hashem is the one who created the bad, quote unquote, the Helem situation, because Hashem knew and Hashem wanted to release I should release within myself much deeper capabilities and much deeper bond and connection to the truth and to Hashem through working hard. The Rebbe continues in the Sikha, but that's the Nekuda. So let's summarize the Parsha and then we'll finish with the Hira and then we'll go to Maidim. So again, the Parsha, the Hira, and Maidim. So in the Parsha, Hashem gave the first Luchos. knowing that this is not going to accomplish his goal. It's like you give Bachar tons of ice cream and pizza to learn a shtickle. You know that it's nice, it's good, they're going to learn. Yeah, you're going to receive the Torah, but it's because the ice cream and the pizza, it's because there's the Lakus revealed everywhere. Of course you're going to receive the Torah. The goal is that I want that you should learn Torah even when it's hard. Oh, so what am I going to do? Says Hashem to himself, quote unquote. I'll make a situation where there's a chet ego. Oh. But why? Why? Because I want that they should receive the Torah in a much deeper way. So to say this in very different words in the parasha, and then we'll say the Torah. Is step 2, I'm asking you a question, Chavre. Is step 2 closer to step 3, or is step 1 closer to step 3? Which step is closer to 3, 1 or 2? 2. Meaning Hashem giving us Hashem's goal is that we should really be connected to Him from a very deep place. Step 1 is Hashem revealing Himself to us. Step 2 is we're struggling, it's hard, we have a taiva, we have to overcome it, it doesn't look so beautiful, but we got to work hard and we work on ourselves. Which one of these 2 episodes is closer to the end goal of having a very deep bond? Let me say it one more time. Think for a second, if you're going to hear this Nakuda, when we come to the Ira, you're gonna look at this whole generation so much different. Listen carefully, it's amazing. Hashem's number 3, Hashem's goal is a Yid should have a very deep bond with Him. Very deep, sincere bond with Hashem. Right? Which of the following steps is closer to that? 1, that a Yid experiences a tremendous Gilui of Elokos. 2, that a Yid has a taiva, and he has to overcome his taiva, he's going to have his skafia, he's going to push himself knowing that Hashem is MS, and even though I want a taiva, I'm going to push myself to do what's right, and he's going to master, he's going to overcome the taiva, and he's going to grow from the taiva, and he's going to decide that from here on he's going to be much stronger. Which one of these 2 steps is closer to the goal? So the answer obviously is number 2. Number 1, okay, let me think a different question about the same situation. Which one of the 2 steps looks more beautiful? Which one of the 2 steps looks more godly? More. One looks so much more flowery. Step 1 looks a world of pink bubbles. Smaitadik, Gilei Lokos, the first luchos, unbelievable. But that's how it looks. When you analyze the situation carefully, although step 2 looks much more grub, taivas and getting involved in mud, in truth, step 2 is a much closer step to 3. Going back for the example with the house, when a person has a vision, he wants to build a house, right? That feels very good. Now he has to go to Home Depot, he has to buy logs of wood, he has to buy nails, he has to buy paint, he has to start nailing and screwing things together. That looks and feels a lot less refined, a lot less geschmack. But that second step, which is much less refined, is what's actually getting him closer to have the final product, which is a built house. Just sitting at home on the couch all day fantasizing good feelings of a beautiful home is not what's getting him there. Does everybody understand the point? So although step 2 looks less nice, it's actually a step closer to the end goal. And it's a necessary step that without that step, you're not going to get to the goal. Okay, now why do you think the Rebbe is telling us this sikha as the last sikha? And the answer is so obvious, it's so simple. I understand maybe a little bit of shpil because I myself have tons to do tonight. I hope not to stay up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I have so much to do. My wife wasn't happy that I had to come here tonight because I have so much to do on my to-do list. It's a random Tuesday and we have so much to do. I canceled like 2 meetings to come, but still, I'm having this kafia for my own personal thing that I have to do to bring across this nekuda. So you, busy Bachram as well, I know that you have a lot to do as well. Let's take an extra 2-3 minutes just to hear this nekuda. No, I mean it for real. It's a real nekuda. We're all here Mesivta Nefesh to hear this nekuda. Let's do it together. You ready? It goes like this. Why do you think the Rebbe is telling us this sikha as the last sikha le'is ata in Galus? And the answer is obvious. Before Gimel Tammuz is step number 1. Beautiful. The Rebbe, Fabringans. Then comes step 2. What's step 2? Like Chet Ego. Suddenly there's a hell of a Hester. Suddenly we don't see the Rebbe. No. How do you look at the situation? The fact that we don't see the Rebbe, how do you look at it? Some people are going to say it was a mistake in history. You know, the Rebbe was here, and then the Rebbe wants Moshiach to come, and then the Rebbe had, whatever, nature is nature, the world is the world, Hashem is Hashem, whatever. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. What can we do? But don't worry, the Geulah is still coming. So why right now do we not see the Rebbe? It's such a mistake. It's not supposed to be this way. It's not supposed to be that we don't see the Rebbe. Really, we're supposed to see the Rebbe. And the goal is to have the Geulah. Comes the Rebbe and says, stop. That's the wrong attitude. What's the correct attitude? That the situation that we're in right now, which is, the situation that we're in right now, which is that we don't see the Rebbe physically, not just as not a mistake. It's actually a necessary step in order to be able to receive the Geulah Mitzvah Shlema. The whole word of the Geulah is that it's a dir b'tachtonim, meaning, Chaver, listen, please, I'm telling you, this is worth listening to. Trust me, even if you're a little bit antsy, push yourself. This is going to change your perspective on the whole Der Shvi that we're in. A person in Der Shvi that finds himself after Gimel Tammuz understand that the third step, in other words, the final step, is the Geulah Amitis Vashlema Dir B'Tachtonim, the Tachtoin, as in me, as in you, as in every single Yid. That's who the Tachtoin is, right? So the Tachtoin should be a Dira, should have Hashem revealed in his life, right? The only way, listen carefully, the only way to go to step number 3 is if we go through step number 2. What is step number 2 for us? The fact that we don't see the Rebbe. Kol oid we saw the Rebbe, kol oid we have luchas rishonos. It's so geschmack, it's so beautiful. But it doesn't give space for the Tachton to work on himself. Just like the first luchas didn't give space for the Yidden to have a real connection. Rather, the Yidden had to go through the process of Chet HaEgel, the Hel and the Hester. The fact that we don't see the Rebbe now physically is terrible. But it's also a certain type of avodah. It's not a mistake. It's a certain avodah which is step 2 in the process. It's not a lower step than step number 1. It's not like we saw the Rebbe, then we fell back, then we don't see the Rebbe, then we're going to jump forward to Mashiach. No, we didn't see that. We saw the Rebbe, that's step number 1. Weiter, we're moving forward, getting closer to the Geulah. Step number 2, we don't see the Rebbe. That triggers within us much deeper keiches. That triggers within us a much deeper iskashrus. That triggers within us a much deeper relationship and a much deeper determination and a much deeper commitment to do what Hashem wants. Or in other words, that demands from the Tachtin, which is us, to be a lot more of a dira. And guess what? That is the ultimate preparation for step number 3, which is ultimate dira b'tachtin, where the Rebbe is going to be revealed, but as Menachem Mashiach in the Geulah, which means we can't look at the situation that we're in as like it's by mistake. We're trying to always go back to the situation before Gimel Tam. No. We're in a very unique day. We're in a very unique time, which is that what's demanded of us is to reveal much deeper keiches, just like the Yidden by Chet HaEgel. Their avodah was to reveal much deeper keiches of doing tshuva to receive a second luchos. Our avodah is right now to reveal much deeper. There's a reason why there's a love Hester, in other words. And that reason is that we're supposed to go deeper in our relationship with the Rebbe. Not to try hanging on to the past, but to really realize if the Rebbe is emes, and Hashem is emes, even though I don't see it with my eyes, but I learn about it, I know about it, I daven about it, I say Krish Mashalamita with it, if I bring about it, it's real, it's emes, it's emes, it's emes. That's much deeper achana for the Geulah, and that's how the Geulah could come into the hearts of every single one of us. Of course, we were Yotze Zayin Galus, we were Yotze Zayin the Avodah, and now we could go to the Geulah Mitzvah Shlema. We're ready, 20-something years, even a second is too much already. We're ready for the Geulah Mitzvah, so we don't want to stay in Galus. Don't misunderstand the Sirach. Don't misunderstand Chaver. The Rebbe is not saying we want to stay in Galus. We don't want to stay in the second step. We want to go to the goal. But recognize that the second step is not a lower pushback, it's not a mistake, it's a part of a much deeper Avodah. L'chaim.